Okay.
Okay.
6 months ago, I had respect for her.
Still hoping I understand more.
You what?
6 months ago, I had respect for her.
All right, welcome. We are the Provo City School District Board of Education, and we are meeting for our business meeting. It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. We will start with a roll call, and we'll start with Board Member McCabe.
How about, yes.
Terry McCabe, board member.
McKay Jensen, board member.
Keith Retail, superintendent.
Melanie Hall, board president.
Excuse me. Rebecca Nielsen, board vice president.
Jennifer Partridge, board member.
Gina Hales, board member.
Stephanie Bryant, business administrator.
And Nate.
Nate Bryson, board member.
Thank you. All right, we're going to have some opening remarks by board member McKay Jensen.
Opening remarks should be like 4 hours long. It should only consist of thank you, thank you, thank you, bus drivers, lunch workers, custodians, audiology aides, special ed aides, special ed teachers, administrators. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Imagine that for 4 hours and it would still be insufficient. That is my opening remarks.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more. So next we are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance by, I'm not sure who's running the Pledge of Allegiance.
Doug Finch will offer the
Finch
Pledge
will
of
offer
Allegiance.
the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will the audience please stand? Please repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finch, for filling in there. All right, next we have the employee recognition, the PROVO Way Award, and I'll turn the time over to our Deputy Superintendent, Jason Cox.
Thank you for this opportunity to recognize such a wonderful group of people again. This is such a bright spot in my job. I love this opportunity. So if we have these people here with us, we want to recognize them tonight. I'll call out their names and we'll ask them to just stand. And then after we watch the video, because we have a little video of their presentation, we'll give the board the opportunity to thank them personally for their work. So the people that we're honoring tonight are Jessica Heaton, Lisa Pulver, Anna Munger, Amanda File, and Lauren Schoenwald. Now I know that there were some of these people who reached out to me and said they couldn't make it because of illness or other things. So, but let's start by giving them a round of applause. We'll watch the video and then we'll let you have the opportunity to thank them.
We are here at Canyon Crest Elementary to surprise Miss Jessica Heaton with the PROVO Way Award. She doesn't know we're here, so come with us and let's surprise her.
We hear such wonderful things that you can do here at Canyon Crest. So congratulations. Ms. Cunningham here is the one who nominated you.
Oh, thank you so much. There was actually several of us throughout the school who have nominated Jessica, but we wanted to just share a little bit about what Jessica has done this past year through our COVID crisis. She's our music teacher, and we've scaled a little bit back with some of our specialty classes, and we had a teacher who has had a lot of health concerns since the beginning of the school year. Jessica, from the very beginning of the year, stepped in and took that little class and called it her own, and the teacher has just recently returned to us, and Jessica has just so sweetly stepped aside to let the teacher back in and build the relationship with her. Even those little children have like literally become her own. We just appreciate her and the fine work that she's done and all the support she's been at Canyon Crest.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Timpview High School. We're here in the library, and we're here to recognize Lisa Pulver with the PROVO Way Award. She's done some extraordinary things for us here at Timpview High School, and we're ready to recognize her.
Thank you for all the wonderful things you do here at Timpview. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Morgan's the one that nominated you, so we'll turn some time over to her.
I just nominated Lisa because I know what an amazing job she does, and she is amazing with the students. I've seen her work one-on-one, and she is so patient and so kind to them, and they respond so well to her kindness and her has a lot of information that she shares with them. She does a great job, and also she works so well. She's willing to do any projects and just steps right up and volunteers for projects and help in any way. So I just think she's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning, Provo. We're here at my favorite school, Wasatch Elementary School. We're going to celebrate Anna Munger, who is a 3rd grade teacher here at our school. She's right around the corner with her kids at recess, so we're going to sneak around and surprise her. Let's go.
Thank you for all the work that you do here at Wasatch. I hear that you have just really stepped up this year and helped out in a big way, and we really appreciate you.
We really appreciate Anna. Just days before school started, with all of the changes that were going on at the last minute, she moved and took over from a traditional 1st grade to a 3rd grade DLI class just seamlessly, which has benefited so many students and the grade level itself. And we're just so grateful for all that you do for the students, for all of your support and your positive attitude through a difficult school year.
Hello again, welcome back. This is the Celebrations Committee. Now we're at Provo Peaks Elementary School, where we're going to celebrate a teacher named Amanda File. We're going to bring her out here in the hallway.
On behalf of the entire Board of Education, I want to give you the PROVO Way Award and thank you for all the work that you do, not only for your students, we hear that you're fantastic with them, but also for their whole family, that you take care of the whole family and just communicate well, and we really appreciate all that you do and all the hard work that you do. So
you're such a wonderful teacher, and you really take care of your students, and you fight for them, and you advocate for them, and you make such a big difference in their lives. So thank you. And also thanks for being such a great member of our team.
Good morning. We are the Celebrations Committee. We're here at the Student Services Office. We're excited to be able to give the PROVO Way Award to Lauren Schoenwald this morning. So we're going to surprise her. She's in a meeting right over here. Here we go.
So congratulations on behalf of the board and the district. We're so pleased with everything that you do for us.
She runs our Communities That Care. She runs our foundation, which includes the Easter basket auction. She does so much for us that right now she runs the daily safety meeting. We just kind of talk about what's going on. She spends essentially hours every day preparing all that data so we can keep on top of everyone's health and safety in this district. And the list goes on and on. I really appreciate that Lauren is a real blessing to our department and to a district that needs this kind of help right now, but she just quietly goes unrecognized, and that's her way. So thanks so much, Lauren, for all you do for Provo.
We want to thank each one of them. Let's give them another round of applause. And start right over here and just let each of the board members go ahead and thank you. Be careful of the cord right here, but we'll just have you walk along the front. If you don't mind, starting right over here.
I'd shake your hand, but that's not allowed. Thank you very much for everything you do.
Thank you for everything you do for the district.
we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you very well.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. We're going to do that. So your reward is to come back to work tonight.
Thanks so much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I know, I hate it. And you can't see smiles on faces.
All right. Again, congratulations to all of our Provo Way Award winners. We really appreciate all the wonderful work that you do for our district and community. Next, we're going to have a special education employee recognition. So I'm going to turn the time over to our Director of Special Education, Suraj Sayal.
Thank you so much. We are so excited, and this is just a wonderful opportunity. Carrie Peterson's here with us tonight, and she has made a tremendous impact on so many children and parents in this district. I think this award is an amazing award, and it's very prestigious. I mean, it's one teacher per year is recognized, but I think the greatest attribute I could ever give Carrie is all the lives that she has touched, not only the children, the parents, but the educators that she's worked alongside. She quietly does her job and does a tremendous job at it. She's exceptional. I'd like to turn some time over to Nate Marston, who is the president-elect of the Utah Council of Exceptional Children, who will be presenting this award.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here, and I appreciate you welcoming me here. I'll give you a little background about our organization. The Council for Exceptional Children is the largest professional organization dedicated to improving outcomes for students with disabilities and/or gifts and talents. And in Utah, our mission is, as a network of professionals, families, and community members, that we're kind of meeting the mission of our parent organization through professional development, through political advocacy, as well as collaboration. One of the most exciting things about my role is the opportunity to be here and do things like this, to recognize the efforts and the dedication and the contributions of professionals that go above and beyond, that and in this case have provided years and years of consistent high quality service, not only to children and youth, but also to fellow educators and families. So the award that I'm presenting tonight is the Hilda B. Jones Special Educator of the Year Award. And pardon me, I'm going to use some of my notes here so I can recognize some of the contributions that Carrie has made. But this award is set aside for a professional who makes outstanding contributions to the field of special education and has demonstrated sustained interest in the field and has made a substantial impact on service, research, and/or education. So from the nominations that we received, I want to read a summary of some of Carrie's accomplishments, and then I'll invite her up here and present her with the award. So Carrie is wrapping up an amazing 34-year career as a special education teacher, teacher leader, and coordinator in Provo City School District. She continues to be a leader in working with educators, parents, and administrators in ensuring that students with significant cognitive disabilities and autism take their rightful place, among society. Her unique ability to help IEP teams develop and implement challenging outcomes for students with disabilities is powerful. She does this through her disposition, words, and actions. She collaborates with universities in preparing new special education teachers for the field and mentoring them to serve students with disabilities in meaningful ways. For over 3 decades, Carrie has insisted and provided consistent support for the purpose of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that each child with a disability is entitled to a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet the child's unique needs and that prepare the child for further education, employment, and independent living. Carrie has given distinguished service and is well deserving of this award. So on behalf of the Utah Council for Exceptional Children, it is my pleasure to present Carrie Peterson with the Hilda B. Jones Special Educator of the Year Award.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I'm going to put that in there just to keep it safe.
All right. Thanks so much.
Well done. Congratulations.
Woo.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Carrie. It's such an honor to have such a wonderful educator amongst us. So thank you so much. Next, we're going to have our school report by Principal John Anderson from Dixon Middle School.
You have that, Bonnie, to put up, or? Okay. Excellent. Well, excuse me if I get nervous. I'll take on 980 middle schoolers any day. You guys are a little intimidating. It's just the masks. Otherwise, I know you're awesome. 1931 was a long time ago. My mom was born in 1931. I visited her. She got out of jail last week, and so I drove up to Idaho and visited her. Her facility has been in lockdown, like so many facilities have. But our building opened right before my mom's birth. And so as we talked about how she's feeling and how she's doing, it reminded me of our building a little bit. She said she's tired and she's worn down and she's tired of COVID. And I think that's how we're all feeling a little bit. This next slide, actually, we superimposed. There's been a tradition the last 30 years or so to take a picture. If you look at that field on the top, we've got the students marking out the 90. Miss Tippett, who's been at Dixon for 30-some years, coordinated this effort. And you see on the left side, the buses are there lined up. We did it right at the end of the day. And to meet COVID guidelines, we did half on one day because we were every other day in the fall. And we superimposed it with half the other day. And so we had the police fly their drone over the building, and we got permissions, of course, to do that. Of course, they have the licensing for that. Did the 9, did the 0, superimposed them, and the kids had a great time doing it. But as you look at the 90 and then the building, you really see some of the history of what Dixon is, from that old original 1931 building to all 9 add-ons as you go out through the building. It's been an interesting year, probably one of the most unique of the 90 that Dixon represents. Let's talk about our current stats and our current situation. We've lost about 50 students through last year to this year. A variety of those we tracked and talked to as they enrolled and unenrolled from Dixon in the fall. We started at about 980, currently sitting at 938 of our 7th and 8th graders. We have 18 students this year in our focus classroom. We have 11 students in our self-contained. And just a reminder, focus we have youth in custody students who are here from state assignment because they're in custody who attend that, and then some other students that are assigned there from the district as well. Self-contained is severely intellectually disabled students that receive FAPE and instruction at Dixon. We have 48 teachers, 3 counselors, 1 full-time social worker, which has been phenomenal. It's her 2nd year with us at Dixon, and having that full-time social worker has really been a support to the students and staff. So 94 total employees that are serving the needs of Dixon students. When we interview students, interview teachers, we're in the process of talking to intern applicants who are interested in working at Dixon next year as intern teachers. One of the things we really are proud of and excited about and love to share with them is the diversity we have within Provo, Utah. Some folks across the nation might not think of Provo as very diverse, but we have a diverse school for what Provo is. Amongst our demographics, we have 53% of our students receiving free and reduced lunch, 18% are language learners of English for the first time, 14% are special education students with some variability there as well. Our mobility, plus or minus, that's a tricky stat to nail down because it's mobile. And so 53, 46, depending a little bit on month to month. It's been a little bit more stable this year. 4% Asian or Pacific Islanders, less than 1% African American, 40% Hispanic, less than 1% Native American, 54% Caucasian students. Of note, amongst our Hispanic students, most of those students actually were born here and speak English as they started their TV watching and school experiences in English. They grow up in Spanish-speaking homes, but begin preschool and English acquisition early on. One of the difficulties they have, and you wouldn't know it because to hear them speak English, they speak English with a local accent, and to hear them speak Spanish, they speak Spanish with a local accent. But a lot of their language is social. It's superficial social structure language. It's not deep cognitive academic language processing skills in either language. And we provide supports to them and help them along the way. But many times they don't know that they're struggling in a language because they feel fluent until we get into deeper subjects. When we look at our testing breakdown, of course, 1920 data is a little bit lacking. Not much to report in a couple of those areas. We were able to do our English language testing prior to the March changes that came upon us last year. So we really have to go to the previous year to get any sort of data to look at currently. Our English language arts, typical, right in the middle, holding pretty much in the mid-40s as the last couple of years prior to this as well. Math, we did have a dip with our 7th grade math. Language arts held in the growth category, but there was a dip there in the growth for math. But again, if you look at the achievement, we were pretty stable in the mid-40s. However, the previous year of note was our English language learners. Huge growth on them. Huge growth with the success that they're enjoying in acquiring the language and the supports we're giving them as they're acquiring the skills to succeed. Based on that data, we look at goals every year and come up with some things that we're focusing on to help our students succeed. Regardless of what happened in March, April, and May, we still had some goals. Those goals really became a continued effort that we had already begun on blended learning, which really brought together 2 of the other things we had focused on the last couple of years, which is AVID, a college preparatory program, and standards-based grading. All 3 of those combined with our efforts this year really tied together the last 5 or 6 years of the district's PD plan, which revolved around teacher clarity and formative assessment. AVID gave us a framework to do that. Standards-based grades tie right into that, and blended learning really became critical in implementing those when we were looking at this year's instructional needs. Our further goals included continued development and work with our PLCs. Our teachers are really using data to drive what's happening. They're looking at the essentials that they're testing on and succeeding with and or struggling with to refocus their teaching efforts and support the students' needs, even in the blended learning environment. We are looking to improve Tier 1 instruction through the blended learning model, which is why also we're integrating AVID and standards-based grades. They support our efficacy in bringing about Tier 1 instruction. We've had a long history of performing arts and success programs. One of the most difficult things about March, April, and May was the inability for the students to perform a musical that they had prepared and ready to go just a couple weeks before, like so many schools experienced. We have a rich tradition there of music, performance, band, choir, and all of that came to a head with nothing, unfortunately. We do have plans this year for a musical. We kept the same musical, Cinderella, and have worked out with licensing to reuse that, paid the fees for that, and are looking at a model to show it to our students in the school in some sort of performance on video in the school. So we're going ahead with one this year, provided that we're in school. And our real goal there is to exceed those previous slides of state averages. Not that we believe 46% is good enough, but we want to maintain ourselves above state averages and also hit the growth model as well, not just the proficiency. Points of pride, one data point I can give you this year already is 100% of our students just passed the mid-year assessment in advanced math. So advanced math is, we have students in math 7-8 together. They're doing 2 years in one, and we have students in math 8 SM1 together. And so in December, they took the first half of that assessment, which for the math 7-8 group was math 7. And for the 8 SM1 students was math 8. 100% of them passed it. First time we've done that, actually. We've had really close numbers there, but I think it's the first time we've passed 100% of those students. Very good work on their part and their teachers' part this year with strange instructional models, or at least new instructional models. Another point of pride for us is the success our students and faculty are enjoying with PBIS. We have a significant reduction in school-wide behavior issues and tardies due to our implementation of PBIS. AVID is a point of pride for us as well, because we're seeing the college preparation mindset come to fruition as we're preparing students for the future and for colleges. The one thing we're again struggling with is getting them to the college visits. We're not allowed to take them out on visits at this time, even though we have 2 universities so close to us. We've implemented and refined our school-wide structures for academic intervention. We haven't been able to use it yet this year because we built a schedule that would involve daily intervention in a regular instructional day with E-time. We've had I-time for years, but we've retooled that and hope to in the fall use that in our new schedule. Our STEM and coding classes continue to succeed, with coding being a growth model that the students are enjoying and implementing in their lives. I say that kind of out of a personal point. My 11th grader has made about $1,200 off of his first app, and he started in a coding class at Dixon. And he's selling that app. It's waning now. It's kind of reached its peak. Again, I mentioned our performing arts successes there, and we're hopeful to put on a musical this year. We continue with a partnership with our colleges with limited, of course, tutorials available and tutoring available. However, the next point there, the Latinos in Action, we've been able to bring in tutors to help throughout the year with our Latinos in Action. They continue to provide service with our leadership students as well and volunteer at the school, even though we're limited on getting out. Our DC trip was another one that was really hard to give up last year. The performances that our students carry out, like the musical, this is a culmination performance because the students represent Dixon and represent Provo City School District when we get to Boston and or Washington, D.C., and they do it in a phenomenal way. Year after year, we hear from the folks that we attend the museums with how well-behaved our students are, and it's easy to see those that aren't, isn't it, Rebecca? Many schools get there and are not prepared, and our kids really, really shine in that performance. Our TSA competitions and travel, of course, have been limited as well, with state being canceled last year and nationals as well. Challenges, when you look at the challenges of Dixon, I mentioned the first one at the beginning as I referred to my mom's aging body. Our building is 90 years old. Our facility is aging. Due to that, we need a short-term and a long-term plan for the attention of resources and financial allocations to address the needs at Dixon. The lack of community cohesiveness regarding that facility is something we know and we feel. Throughout a difficult bond session, the one thing I did hear from our community, across the community, was the agreed need for a facility. The difficult part, of course, lies in how and where. But that plan is something that we're looking forward to and anxious to work in a continued fashion with the facilities folks and move forward. We continue to struggle again with that mobility rate, as I mentioned. We have students coming and going as their families come and go, especially with job changes and the difficulties of family supports. We have struggled to engage the families that we need to get to the school. We have a strong social media presence. We have a really phenomenal person at our school who manages those social media outreach programs. We're on every platform available, but it's difficult for parents to connect. I remember a phone call from a parent about parent conferences. He was concerned that he didn't know in advance about parent conferences. As I reminded him that it was on our website, that it was on Facebook, that it was on Twitter, that we had sent out emails and phone calls, how else could we help? And he simply pled for a text. That's what works best for our parents in many ways. And so we added texting to that as well. We're using everything at our disposal to communicate, but it's hard for parents in a day when their jobs are in question and they're working 1 or 2 or 3 jobs to make things happen. But we are working to engage those parents and get them to school and to activities. We continue to plan with the high school with our dual language students. It's a challenge we're working through. We're in our 3rd year of Portuguese, our 8th year of Spanish, dual immersion. Successes on our parts with the students. They're moving forward and succeeding at the high school level as well. But it's something that takes planning and effort on both my part and Boyd's part to make sure the staffing is there and that we have qualified folks to do it. We continue to struggle with staffing challenges related to the 29-hour work week that we are required to fulfill in terms of federal employment law. We have positions that are hard to fill with that, and this year's been particularly difficult with substitutes. The trackers and other hourly folks I have, we're putting them in the classroom regularly, if not daily, which means they're not fulfilling the other jobs that we've hired them to do. Those challenges aside, we have strategies that we're using and working with to continue to provide success for our students. Our PD is working. We have success happening in the classroom this year. If you want to see some of it, come on over. Some of our teachers have really retooled what they're doing in a successful way, and we'd love to share it with you. Their data is showing that students are learning and growing even with this unique year that we have. Again, our data with PBIS is solid. We have improved the safety, the feel of safety at Dixon, the order of how school takes place and how students feel. We continue to look at our data and use that data to guide our decision-making and our instructional needs. We use our own interim assessments to find out where we're at. So even in a year like last year when we don't take a state assessment, we know where our kids are. And as we go into the summer this year, we'll know what students need to target and to do, and we can hand that data off to the high school as well in terms of any gaps the students have because of our own in-school interim assessments that we use. We use an extended day program. We've done some online components to that prior to being able to bring students back to after school. And we continue our work with standards-based grading so that students know the essentials that they're succeeding with as opposed to whether they're good at turning in assignments or not. Next steps include building on the strengths that we have in our teachers' capacities, especially as we engage in blended learning. We have phenomenal folks at our building that are helping our teachers engage in professional development and success there. We look at the facts that we face, we look at the data, we see our test scores and our results from previous years and work to improve it. We are working desperately to improve Tier 1 in a blended model. We know that we need to reach 80% of our students now, even if the models change in terms of how many days we get them and what time we get them. We are working to engage our families, as I mentioned, and we will continue our focus on the district's efforts as well with teacher clarity and formative assessment. Some pictures. We always get asked for sharing the results of our trips. The Old North Chapel there where the lights were held. And then Boyd and I enjoying Times Square. I was fascinated by the kids. They were mesmerized by Times Square. We spent 20 or 30 minutes there just looking around, taking pictures of kind of nothing, but just of what Times Square is. You can't see the statue very well in the background, but this is at Battery Park, looking out at the Statue of Liberty. On our trip to Boston, we did take a quick day trip to New York, which is where we ended up in Times Square, Statue of Liberty as well. We got to the museum. The kids were phenomenal, behaved wonderfully. We didn't really go into the park, which is right across the street, but we walked along the park so they were able to see the park and enjoy that experience as well. DC, I've pulled pictures from previous years simply because we didn't go last year, as you know. The students always, again, behave well, are well prepared. When we get to the wall, they have a name that they researched and a letter they've written, and they leave that letter there and grab an inscription or a tracing of the name they've researched. Gary Wilson, the picture there, I've left intentionally. Because of the changes in DC, I don't know how soon we might be able to go, honestly. Nor do I know when we might propose to you that we do go. When he took that picture, he had John Curtis's permission, had his feet up on that desk, and it was a really relaxed picture. When you look at it in light of current events, it's a different picture altogether. I mentioned to Gary I was showing this today so he knows. But again, it just reminds us that as much as we've loved these trips to DC, the unsurety of the current situation means I don't know when I'll come to you for a proposal simply because of all the unknowns, but we are anxious to get back. Again, at Arlington, the students research a person, the history, and why that person is buried there. On the right, Mrs. Russell, who retired last year, and she dropped in the other day, and given all the interesting things of this year, she said she was very glad she made that decision. It was time. We're standing in front of a memorial there in the National History Museum, where her father's items are donated to that Vietnam memorial in that little frame. 2 of those items were his. So the students are there with her, and we prepare the students again for these experiences every year, and they perform beautifully for us, for Dixon, for Provo City School District. With that, that brings to a conclusion the pictures, the sharing, the data, the ideas I have, and I turn it to you for questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So students at Sunset View in the CAS program, how do they register for honors classes at Dixon?
So where we are, third or fourth year, the years start running together for me, of CAS students coming to us from Sunset View and from the merged program that existed prior to that. We reach out to them. We actually have a special registration night for those students at the school previous years. I need to work with Chris and see how we're going to do that this year. We actually work with those parents individually and work with them on the classes that they want to choose. The students I mentioned that passed the mid-year assessment that we had done, most of those were CAS students, which is why they're in that advanced math program. Having finished Math 7 many times in 6th grade, they're the ones that jump into Math 8 SM1 combo and then do the 10th grade Math SM2 in their 8th grade year. So we work with those parents in an individualized registration.
Sorry. I actually have 2 quick questions for you. The first is, I'm interested to know in how the AVID program is progressing at the school. I don't have a child at your school this year, which is strange, but I will again next year. But anyways.
Just a gap year.
Yeah, I'm just interested in knowing how that's going and how it's working and if you feel like the program's expanding, or I know it's kind of a strange year to expand, but anyways, I'm curious about
Yeah, great question, and it is expanding. There's 2 things we're focusing on with AVID. Again, we chose it because it provided us a framework and a vehicle for the professional development we had seen in some of the Hattie conferences, some of the research we had been receiving as a PD platform. But one of the components of AVID is WICR, which stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading. That ties together so much of what we were doing with the Hattie research, but it gave us a framework of instruction. So we have the AVID elective class, which is growing. The first year we had 1 period of it. This year we have 2 periods of it. But we're using the WICR strategies school-wide. One of the greatest things we've done with that idea is I approached Julie Hagan a couple years ago and said, hey, let's talk about a reading component for our students that fits into this WICR model that we're doing. And so our 7th graders are all passing through the CCA intro classes, getting a reading support for a quarter. We'd like to do more, but it gives us a whole quarter of learning strategies, learning interventions, and some reading assessment and reading development for the students as they move into 8th grade. So AVID is doing well for us, both in a framework model and the students that are in the elective. Again, we grew it to 2 periods this last year. We're just entering the registration phase right now for this next year.
Awesome, okay. And then my second question for you is just, I know standards-based grading requires like a pretty good mind shift for people to understand and to know how it works, and sometimes it feels like we get a lot of pushback when that's implemented. I'm interested to know how that's been received by your parents as you've been.
Yeah, we've had some really good calls from parents, and there's emotion behind grades, right? But the calls we've gotten have been really good calls, questions about why is it different, what's different about it, as we explain that we're grading on essentials and learning mastery, as opposed to the ability to turn in an assignment on time and or complete all of your assignments, that we're actually grading on a standard that lets you know, Johnny's got this. And as we explain that, we're seeing success and understanding from parents. There's a lot more work to do. We've got 980 some odd students at the school, and we only have a small pilot of about 6 teachers using it. So we've got a long way to go with it. And the district has some direction that they want to move with it as well. The success is there. It's not perfect yet, but we are having those conversations and parents are walking away with a better understanding of it. But it's different, and it's a little scary because it's not what we know as adults.
Is it in a particular section of the school, like math or science?
Yeah, math and science.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question. I've talked to you about this before, but you guys had the flipped classroom learning model, which was very, I forgot to ask if you've done, did you do that in previous years or is this the first year?
We'd looked into it in previous years. We'd begun using it. We weren't one-to-one, and it's not as easy to do if you're not one-to-one with devices. Because we're one-to-one now, we're taking something positive from this, and there's a couple of positives we're taking away. Canvas as an LMS district-wide and school-wide for us is a huge win because we can engage then in the blended learning fully.
Excellent. Do you anticipate, I guess it would maybe depend on the one-to-one with the devices, but do you anticipate being able to use this into the future? And
absolutely.
Do you think that it is helping the learning of the students, just not even in a pandemic year, but do you feel like that type of a classroom will be beneficial into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. From what I hear from tech, Chad can answer that question when it's time for him, but we will continue with the one-to-one. Students will have that option. The data that we were pulling at the end of first quarter with the classes that were fully engaging with blended learning was showing that our students were at or ahead of last year with blended learning. It can work really, really well, even with different schedules and different times. And we have data. If you'd like to come on by, Gina, we'll show you. I've got a couple of classes where you can see it in action, and we can show you the data they were showing me about the success they were having.
And I imagine that is including the students. I worry about the students whose parents are working, you know, like you said, 2 or 3 jobs, and they're just not home, and they're helping take care of
And language
their
learners
children.
and special ed students.
And it's working just as well for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
The students that are in those classes, and again, we have a variety, a spectrum of blended learning taking place in the school as we're making this shift. You know, I have teachers that have been there for 30-some years that are feeling like first-year teachers this year because they're creating lessons brand new. They know what the content is, but they don't know what to teach or how to teach it yet. And so from August to now, they've been working like they're brand new. And there's some good to that, but they're tired.
All right. Thank you. I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thanks.
John, congratulations on the culture of your school. Every time I walk into that school, I know that people go, this is a good place. This is, you know, middle schools are important because that's where kids decide if they like school. They just go in elementary school because we tell them to go, but they decide a lot if they're going to like school or not. And you have a great, great culture there. Could you go back to the challenges slide? Because I thought that was really brave, and I don't want to just jump past that. The things that you said, because a lot of them are challenges to us. Can you just give us a status on the cohesiveness? Has people decided that, you know, one side or the other has won on regarding the facility? Everybody know that it needs to be rebuilt, but do you sense any solidifying of in cohesiveness?
That's the solidifier. The only piece that really is solidifying across the community and the parents. There's full agreement that the building needs to be addressed. Again, that tricky part goes back to where. And where that location is and what it looks like and how. And then, of course, when you go district-wide with that idea, and that's you folks more than it is me, I just work with students, the cost, of course, on that where. No, I'm not sensing a coming together on that at all, honestly. But I'm not hearing about it as much either now that the bond passed and didn't move forward on that regard.
Okay. Can you just tell me a little bit more about these 20-hour employees and how that's a challenge?
Sure. So when we were every other day, Monday through Thursday, the trackers, the instructional aides, I have a couple of secretaries that are also 29 an hour, my librarian. We were actually able to use those and employ those for the full 29 hours while kids were in the building. In other years, my librarian has to leave and or lock the library or remove a tracker there so we can keep the library open because it's a 29-hour position only. And the kids are there on a normal year more than 29 hours. And now that we've added Friday back in, we've had to adjust again those trackers, hourly secretaries, and folks to balance that out. Another critical one is the attendance secretary. That's a 29-hour position as well. Well, attendance is open from 7 to 3 so that we can receive calls and address the needs of attendance and excusing absences and illnesses. And again, now that we've added Friday back in, we've had to adjust her schedule and put other people in there to balance that out. The 29 hours doesn't meet an instructional week. That's what that means.
Great. Tell me about a little bit more about this in-depth language acquisition that you're having to. How do you evaluate whether it's surface or is it just on the test or how does that? Where do you get that?
So one of the biggest ways we see that is actually in the science assessments. Science is actually, and this is quoting my 11th grader, science isn't a test on language or on science, it's a test on language. It's a test on your ability to take apart that paragraph and apply the science you know to it. And those are his kind of words. But that's one of the places we see that. Some of the ways we look to bring that out and find what our needs are, we assess all the 7th graders with a reading assessment so that we know where they're at in terms of their reading ability. And that's all students. so that we can apply that and teachers have that data to use and apply to their classrooms and to their instruction. We use some of our TSSA and Trust Lands money to bring in extra ESL teachers. We have low class numbers there on purpose. We have an extra ESL teacher on purpose to be able to support the developing needs of language acquisition. And of course, we use the state assessment there for language learners to find out where they're at in their levels. So some testing, of course, but then the AVID model, the Wicker again, provides us a framework where we can apply school-wide with reading and writing skills and gives us training and teaching and models that we can use. And we're not there yet. We've got about a third of our staff trained and hoping to continue with the training model with AVID.
Great. That's actually helpful in some of the things I'm doing at the Capitol now. So maybe I'll talk with your superintendent about a couple of items that might be of interest to you. Can you just, in that regard, would you ask them one sort of professional question, sort of like how much of a multiplier is language acquisition? So certainly, I mean, they're moving towards in assessing at risk, you know, saying socioeconomic just has the highest correlation, is the hardest number to manipulate. How much of a multiplier is socioeconomics plus a language learning?
Yeah, I don't have a statistical number to give you.
But just a sense.
Yeah, Krashen and Chomsky talk about the language acquisition device being active through 12 years old, being this mental framework that linguistically you have in your head until about 12. And so we get them at 12 when, according to Krashen and Chomsky, that LAD would start to shut off. It's big in my estimation. I couldn't put a number to it per se, but what I can give you is an example. We have students that come from countries all over the world. And students that come from countries from all over the world, I have an example of a student who came from Europe not too long ago, and another student who came from Argentina not too long ago. Both of those students got here speaking very little English, but they had a foundational primary home language and an academic language. They were able to test through levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 within a year. 4 means you're back in regular classes throughout the school, not receiving really any supports in language acquisition, just monitoring. We're checking on them. Those students had a foundational ability in their native language where there's transference and schema that lets you add the new language. Without that, it takes a lot longer, and that's what we're seeing with our students.
Great. Thanks for you. I think you're a great principal. That's a great school.
Thanks, McKay. Love being there.
Any other further questions? Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was a great presentation.
Thanks, guys.
Good job, John. Thank you.
All right, we have now reached the point in our business meeting where we will now take public input. If you would like to address the board, on my right to your left is a paper that we need you to fill out and then to hand it to Bonnie over here.
Apparently I'm the only one from the public, right?
Yes. I still need you to fill out the paper though.
So if I've got a question,
Yes.
Do you want to do one business item while we're waiting?
Sure. Let me go back to, do we want to approve the business items or do we want to go back and talk about the other?
We just approve the policies.
All right, we can approve revised policy 610, donations and fundraising. Stephanie, do you want to just talk briefly about that?
Yep, I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just speak to both of them. 6110 and 6160 both had some minor edits to them to clarify some rules around school fees, fundraising, and donations. Basically clarifying some fee waiver issues in 6160 and clarifying that fundraising that happens to go above and beyond the expected fundraising in any year can carry over for that activity. So that will be both your A and B business items.
All right, is there a motion to approve the revised policy 6610, donations and fundraising?
So moved. You said the whole thing.
Sorry.
6110, yeah. So I move that we approve revised policy number 6110, donations and fundraising.
Motion made by Board Member Jensen. Is there a second on?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Hales. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, the second one, is there a motion on policy 6160?
I move that we approve revised policy 6160, school fees and waivers, with the change we discussed in the study session today.
All right, policy, or motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
I just have a quick question. Did we make changes? Did you say with the changes or?
That was the line where 58 was missing the not.
That's correct.
All non-waivable
Correct,
fees
okay.
are not subject to fee waivers.
Jennifer caught an edit that we need
Thank you. I had
beyond
forgotten about
the
that.
changes.
I'll second that.
All right, second by Board Member Nielsen. Is there any other further comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor with motion with aye?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right, we would like to invite David Lewis to the podium.
Thanks. So I'm a parent of a daughter that attends PROVO High School. I just am curious. I know that there have been announcements made at the state level that there's a diversity director that has been appointed. So I'm curious in the PROVO school district, how will that, what's the impact? How will that be carried out? And then the second thing is I do have a daughter who's a student athlete and concerned about her safety. I have no idea what the state or what PROVO school district is going to do as far as maybe this is too early, maybe this is the right time. My question is about the transgender athletes. So my concern as a father is concerned about her safety if there's much larger, bigger, stronger athletes that she competes against. Those are the two questions I have questions on.
Do you want me to take a swing at those?
Go ahead.
Normally, we don't do a back and forth, but we've got a couple
Well,
minutes here.
I'm the only one here, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So we're going to be dealing with, so first of all, we'll be wanting to wait for a little bit of written guidance from the federal government about what it is they are trying to enact. We don't know the nuts and bolts of that yet. We do have a diversity director. His role is he runs a number of parent and student committees, different ethnic groups and other individuals throughout the district are welcome to attend those. You can check our website, or if you look over here, Doug Finch will wave his hand at you, and he's got information on that as well.
Okay.
And then again, I have already placed a call to one of our attorneys that we deal with on a regular basis, just to get some interpretation about what in particular, you mentioned the transgender laws that appear to be coming in. We don't know what they mean yet. We've heard speculation in the news, but we don't know how they're actually going to be directing district behaviors. So part of that is going to be how they're challenged, part of it's going to be how they're written, and then of course our attorney and local organizations like civil rights groups and on and on and on will have to be looking at what kind of guidance they give us. So I don't know yet, but that's our plan to study that out and to learn about it.
I'm assuming now, I know that this is typically not a back and forth. I appreciate you doing that. I'm assuming that if something comes down from the federal, if a local level decides we're going to do something different, is that our option?
Usually not, unless you're willing to give up funding at the same time. So, but again, we don't know the strings that can get attached to that. It would probably be either in the Title IX office or in the Office of Civil Rights, or maybe a combination of both of those. We've had interactions with them in the past. I would imagine that we'll get a lot more guidance coming down with specificity about what it is we have to deal with here. We just don't know. We know that we were dealing with some guidance about 4 years ago, then the administration changed, and now we're back. So it really depends on what direction is given to us. What usually will come is that they'll require you to give up funding if you're not going to follow their rules, but then you really can't give up the funding. So kind of in a box in terms of what we do. So we're just going to have to try to deal with it from a legal standpoint.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aside from that, if I could just say, I think everyone on our board in all of these issues is, the reason we have a diversity is so that person is not to create a new curriculum. The curriculum comes to us from the state standards. It's so that people feel safe. He works with individuals. He doesn't come to us and say, you need to change this policy, you need to make sure this is taught. He works with individuals to say, do you feel safe? And that's our interest. Even with your daughter, we want to make sure that she feels safe. We're committed to everything, including all those other things. We do have a policy on transgender that comes mostly from the NCAA. That has gone to the State Activities Association and how they want to do that and what their requirements are so that all our athletes are qualified for the NCAA competition. And we do that. We're not cutting edge. We're worried about making individual students feel safe, including your daughter. And if she has any problems, please, let Doug know or let any of us know, and we'll work on that like mad. We're committed to that.
I appreciate you saying that. By the way, if she knew that I was here saying I was concerned about her, I don't think she'd be real thrilled.
We won't tell
Not a FERPA
anybody.
violation or anything.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to item C in our business items to approve budget requests and adjustments. Stephanie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yep, just real briefly, we have 3 budget adjustments. They all exceed $50,000. They're either for new grants that have come in since the originally approved budget or to bring our budgets in line with the state funding.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the budget requests and adjustments?
I move we approve the budget requests and adjustments discussed in study session.
Motion made by Board Member Nielsen. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Board Member Partridge. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. All right, the next one is the 2022-2023 school year calendar. Jason Cox, will you speak about that a little bit?
All right, thank you. So we did run our calendar process. Again, we've come down to where calendar B had received more votes from the community as far as the different options on it. It does contain, as usual, the full 2 weeks for Christmas, a full spring break, the full 3 days for fall break. As mentioned before, I think one of the big differences is that the semester ends prior to winter break, and so that's something a little bit different than in the past. We typically recommend the one that receives a little, more votes, which is calendar B of the 2 options. Any specific questions along those lines? We'd be happy to work with any suggestions you have for how we can help improve the calendaring process.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2020-23 school year?
I move that we approve 2022-2023 school year calendar B.
Motion made by Board Member Nielsen. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Board Member Jensen. Is there any other further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. All right, the next one is the adoption of the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $80 million aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2021. Stephanie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I just like giving you really long titles.
I do. So it's a lot to say.
Just real quickly, this is a resolution that the board will vote to adopt that authorizes the actual sale of the $80 million bond from the election back in November. So if this is adopted, we will proceed with setting up a sale, which will happen in March. When that sale occurs, the bonds are sold, and we will have the proceeds to continue to fund the project.
Okay. Is there someone that would like to make a motion?
I move we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $80 million in general obligation bonds.
Motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Hales. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. All right. Should we go back into the other
Might as
stuff?
well hit those other things.
Okay, let's
yeah.
go back to the stuff we were going to do in study session. Back in January, we were doing the committee memberships, and I forgot a couple of them. One of them was the diversity committee, and is there somebody who can talk a little bit about what that one does? Thank you, Doug.
Excuse me. As was mentioned by the patron who spoke tonight, there is a group that works to try and identify the demographics and the nature of the students who live in this community. And again, we've adopted that theme of it being a family first and a very welcome home to Provo type of an approach. So this is an opportunity for community members and other individuals, including a representative from the Board of Education, to come together and visit about how we are making this a more inclusive and safe location for kids to get their education and have all those opportunities to be seen, heard, and valued in the school district. So I think they meet I think once a month at most,
Okay.
and it's usually an evening meeting to allow professionals to attend. Right now, I think those meetings are primarily taking place through a Zoom call, so you can attend through home, last anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half tops.
Is there somebody that would like to do the diversity committee?
I think I'm uniquely qualified.
We would love to have you do it, Gina.
I do feel like I may have overextended the number of committees that I am on. So I would like, I really think of all of them, this is probably the one that I should be on.
Okay.
And I already work with them, but I guess we can talk about
We can always amend
the other ones.
the other ones
Okay.
that we're doing. So.
Give it a couple of months and whatever one you want, throw it down.
So, thank you, Gina. So, and then the other next one is we have a communication committee that's going to be set up. Keith, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It'll
one?
meet a couple times, probably every other month at the most. And we'd like to have a board member who can help us advocate both, kind of mediate between the wishes of the board and help us understand and apply those, as well as the communications department, just to make sure that we're on track. It's just to help us stay on track.
Rebecca, I was thinking you might be a good candidate for this one, just because you're board leadership, as well as you helped with the hiring of the new person. I don't know if that would be.
I'm interested. I'm happy to do it, and I'd be interested in doing it. So that.
I would like to be on that as well.
Okay. Can we have up to two?
We can have probably one plus an alternate.
All right, why don't we have Rebecca, and then we'll have you as an alternate. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, next, NSBA.
handle
So,
that?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one of our board members contacted us this past week and wanted to find out what our standing was regarding what we're doing with NSBA. In the last few months, the National School Boards Association has billed me a couple of times between $8,000 and $9,000 to sign the district up. I have not paid that. simply because I figured with the pandemic we would not be attending the conference. Turns out we won't be, but we might be virtually. I guess I have to know what the board may want to do in terms of attending the conference virtually, because if you're going to, then I need to pay the registration membership for NSBA. I did consult with one board member earlier in the year, and we talked about me not doing that, but I'll do what the board wishes here. So it's just a matter of, number one, what do you want to do regarding NSBA, and then that will guide me whether or not I re-register the district with them.
Just to make people aware, it's April 8th through the 10th, which is also our spring break. So I know that makes, for people like myself, Rebecca, and Jennifer, who have children, it makes it difficult for us to attend virtually. For myself, I can't speak for the rest of those two. But
I just have, can I comment?
yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
I always value what we learn at NSBA, and I enjoy the conferences. I think it's great. It's in our board handbook that we need to be doing professional development and those kinds of things. I just think in a virtual format, I don't know that I'd be able to commit the time to it like I would if I was actually at the location. I just know, like, when we had USBA, I was home, and so I missed USBA due to work and whatnot. I just feel like I wouldn't be able to get as much out of it virtually, personally.
Board member.
Sure, as the proxy NSBA representative, my registration is paid for, by the way. So that, if that's a cost reduction, yeah, that's a discount. But there are very few districts in our state because there's not really a significant price break. So they're holding this online event that is not. I think that there are some boards that are taking 1 or 2 members and maybe looking at the advocacy conference that deals with diversity issues, or one of the more specialized events. Remember, individual board members don't pay dues to NSBA. It's an organization of states. It has 50 members. You will get a couple of mailings probably from USBA. We're trying to be very supportive of Christy Sweat from Salt Lake City, who was just made the secretary treasurer. That means that she'll become the president of NSBA one day. We're trying to be supportive of the national organization, but they're, as a point of reference, as my official self, oh, come on, it'll be great. I'll tell you, not very many boards in our state are doing that. Calendaring is a problem, and they're not wise enough to give a price break to sit at home. And it's very expensive.
Can one, if there's a board member that really feels like they really want to participate, can we just send one person?
Yeah.
If they feel like they're going to be able to allocate that time to do it?
Sure.
The email that they sent to us, basically, if I understood it right, it was this one price gets you between 1 and 8 or 9 people in your district. Right. So if we have 1, we pay the same as if we have 5. Or
it's not exactly 7. Like that. I think one is cheaper than 3, but 4 is about the same as 7, or 3 is the same as 5, or usually they're thinking of a board of 5 with a business administrator and a superintendent. So they're looking at that price break around 5.
So it looks like you can do individual pricing.
Yeah.
And then there's 9 district team members, and then 10 more.
Okay.
So my suggestion is that if there's somebody who would really like to participate, let Keith know, and we'll get you signed up.
Are they recording their meetings? So if one person signed up, they can share it with the rest of us?
Yeah, you could download whatever presentation you saw. You could keep it. I'm sure their app will still work, and you could download those things and share. Everybody's dealing with COVID. There's not a lot of, it's what you'll get the next year or the next year. I will put a plug in for some of the, there's a sort of a monthly event for USBA that, we're going to make an effort to try and do stuff. You'll have the board president's sort of little workshop that's just an hour, and those things will go on this. So I don't think we'll be short on professional development. And if you need something specific, I am training a lot of other boards, but we could have Richard and Amber Shale come down, and you wouldn't have to hear me even. But if you want something, you could have USBA would be happy to do sort of a specialized training if you want something in professional development.
Okay, so does that work? If you're interested, contact Keith and we'll take care of it. Okay, great. Let's see, we're on the consent calendar. Okay, should have reviewed that. We'll go back and then we'll come back to that to pass it in just a second. The Google Calendar items, we have our board retreat coming up on the 26th. February 19th, though, we have the
Day on the Hill, which basically consists of Deidre Henderson so at 10 o'clock, Deidre Henderson will talk about the governor's vision for education and the governor's office priorities. And then basically after that, it's a big JLC when we're talking about. It's all online, right? And it's all online. Yep, it's just a Zoom link, and we're trying to keep it short. And the president's vice president's workshop is an hour before that. Right. And but that is February 19th.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Motion made by Board Member Jensen. Is there a second?
I second that.
Second made by Board Member Partridge. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I have questions, but not on the motion.
On the consent calendar?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't really give us time to talk about it. So is that okay if we? Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay. On the minutes, they are not attached, so I haven't been able to read them. I'm not really sure how we can approve them if I haven't been able to read them.
I thought.
No.
I thought they were attached. If they're not there,
They should
I
be
apologize,
attached
that's my
to,
fault, and
they should be
I'll-
attached to last month's meeting, right, Bonnie?
They are, yeah. They should be attached here, though. I don't know how to go there now and do it.
So there
but I
are
can-
some instructions there for us, although the year's a little out of date on it, but you can go to the meetings and then select the past meeting and read the minutes that way.
Okay. And then on the warrant report, how are the bills paid separately by the district and the individual school accounts?
So most of what we pay comes through the district. The schools have their individual accounts. For example, in the high schools, they have some fees that come in and whatnot, and they use those funds to pay some bills. They have, at the high schools and middle schools, they still have their own separate checking accounts. They have their own separate accounting software that we then load into our core software. At the elementaries, we've integrated them into our core software, so they put in a request for payment, they code the account that they want it paid to, and then we process a check here locally. So it varies from school to school. We're actually working on moving 100% of our schools into our core system. It's a project that Devin's got on her platter. She's working very closely with Weidenhammer and Alia, which is our core software, to get those in. We've been working through some school fees issues and making sure that we have the ability to account by student before we take that project on, and she's almost there with that. So the secondaries can cut their own checks for those items that they code to their school accounts, but most of it comes through the district, and then the elementaries, it all goes through our core system, and we run the checks for them out of their checking accounts.
On page 3, what is K-12 management?
So K-12 management is one of the options we use at eSchool for our virtual learning. And I don't know if Doug maybe can speak to, if you have specific questions about them, but they're one of our e-school vendors.
Yeah, K-12 is the name of the company, so, yeah.
Yeah, just any specific question. It is just the software, that's the learning platform. It's the LMS of sorts that these students participate through the e-school program. So is there any specific questions I can help with?
No.
Okay, we just pay the subscription for each of the students who enroll with us, and it's a fee that probably just is part of that monthly payment.
Also on page 3, why are we paying Dominion Energy if we have Provo City Utilities?
They actually provide some of our gas, our natural gas. And Provo City Utilities doesn't provide all of that. We have some schools where we've contracted with Dominion to get us better pricing, where we're locked into some pricing for a period of time.
But there isn't another natural gas provider for Provo municipality.
Yeah. So on the executive summary on page 3, is the top graph in dollars? Because there's no symbol explaining the numbers.
So the top graph, I assume you're referring to the revenue graph?
Yeah, the top one.
Yeah, that is in dollars. It's dollars and percentage. So for example, federal is $6.8 million or 6% of our total revenues. And I don't know if I'm looking at the right one because the one I see does have the dollars equated on it.
Yeah, and the top one doesn't have any symbols on it. And then on pages 6 through 13, are these numbers also in dollars?
Oh, page 3. You're talking about the line graph on page 3? Was that what you were?
Wait,
You're talking about the charts?
Are you on the financial report?
Financial statement, yep. Yes,
3.
They're all dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not following which graph you're looking at.
The per student expenditures by function.
On pages 6 through 13, are these numbers in dollars?
The district funds.
They all are.
Yes, those are in dollars. That is our approved budgets, which get approved in the summertime. And then our working budget, which would have like tonight's budget changes on it. That's our working budget. And then obviously year-to-date actuals. So yes, those are in dollars.
On page 14, is the second column the code for the program?
Let me get to that.
The first column describes the item, and then the second column, is that a code?
Yes, yeah, that's part of our account code. Those codes are generally, if they're state funds, are generally assigned by the state.
On page 16, when did they start construction on the roof on Wasatch, and when should it be done?
I don't think we started it, did we?
You haven't started it, and
It has not
we're
started.
still,
In fact, it doesn't even have a budget attached to it. That 20,000 is probably some minor repairs that he's had to do. I'll double check that with Mark for you.
Okay, and I'm also on page 16. The tennis courts at Dixon Middle School are still listed as being demolished. And I thought that was not going to happen anymore.
That was simply a listing so that we could attach a budget to it, but that is an old thing. It hasn't been updated since summertime.
Okay.
We typically won't update all the capital projects until we start getting towards the end of the year and see where we need to make those budget shifts that I referred to earlier. So in the next probably couple months, April-ish, we'll sit down with Mark and say, okay, what projects are you no longer going to do? Or you can't start until next year, and then we make those changes and give you guys an updated report.
And then also on page 16, the design fees for Timpview Phase 1, is this for the academic wing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And that would be covered under the bond, correct?
Yeah, so we have fronted some of the Timpview costs so that we could get started and not delay, but those will be basically reimbursed from the bond funds.
That's all my questions.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next we're going to have a board member report by Vice President Rebecca Nielsen.
Okay, one thing I have learned from being on the school board is that there are always many, many sides to every story and many, many perspectives to consider when making decisions. And so one of the things I've tried to do is make sure I'm considering all sides and all perspectives. And so as my board member report today, I'm going to list 4 things I've done within the last month that have helped me keep perspective from lots of different sides. So the first is that we have attended the USBA virtual conference, and we were able to get some training on the Everyday Strong program, which addresses mental health and parenting. And so that's a really great perspective for us to keep as board members when we're making decisions. We met with some of the student body officers from Provo High School in regards to their request for some assemblies and or dances and or senior dinners and their request for us to consider that. And it was great to meet with them to get their perspective. I was invited by a friend and a neighbor to meet with her and about 12 other of her neighbors and friends, and was able to listen to their perspective, answer their questions, and hear what they thought and felt, especially in regards to COVID. And it was great to get their perspective as well. And the last thing is that I met with and attended the biology department PLC at Provo High School, and listened to the teachers and saw what it's like to plan lessons in the middle of COVID, and heard their perspective and their concerns. And it is always an eye-opening thing to listen to people who are not in the same position as myself, and to learn how to take their perspectives and incorporate all those concerns and opinions into the decisions that we make. And so that's my report, is that I'm trying to do my job. I'm trying to listen, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to make sure everyone is heard. And although I've only listed 4, I have from the last month about 16 full pages of notes from different things I've done. So that's my report, is that I know I don't speak for the entire board, and this is my personal report, but I know there's a lot of board members here doing the same things. So.
Thank you. Superintendent Rattel.
Okay, so I have 2 items on the agenda. One is I have no new approved student travel that has come to me. I have 1 item that is going to be happening sometime in March, and because we're living with COVID and it's an out-of-town item of travel, I have to check with the coach over at Provo High School to confirm that that event is still on. But no other out-of-town travel has come to me for approval since I've last reported on that. Secondly, if you look at the attachment on the miscellaneous item, there is an attachment there that Bonnie was good enough to scan in and put into this folder. This is a thank you from the U.S. Census Bureau for us participating in the census. And I think they're giving us a lot of nice credit for something I don't even remember doing, but it was a nice gesture, and so I wanted the board to know that the district was recognized in this way. That's my report.
Thank you. Well, we've come to the end of our meeting, and we've done everything on the agenda. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, have a great night. Thank you.
Can I give you a call tomorrow, ask you about ideas you had for John?